Point is, and there's no magic to 8. We just kept finding people who knew. Point is, sometimes the way you know what your passion is you look at what you loved as a child. I think kids, all of us when we're children, we're unvarnished by practicality. We're not worried about making money or supporting a household. You know, there's something to that. You'll see more of it in the Skinny on Success, but it's freaky how many successful people who said they knew at an early age. Jim Nantz said, I knew at age 8 I was going to be broadcasting for CBS Sports. And when I finally sat down in New York City at the broadcast booth, or whatever they call it, the first time I was hired and I went and I sat in the booth, he said, I had an amazing deja vu, as if I had been there 1,000 times before. He said, I knew where all the cameras were. I knew where everything was. He said, I sat down, I felt like I'd been there 1,000 times before. Again, not sure about, yes, sir.
When you talk about passion and you talk about something you love, like I hear you say like real estate, that's what made you, that's what you're into. And I know I do this myself. Why go to cosmetics, clothing, books? I mean, how come it all unravels and we go to all these other areas? This is what we love and this is where our success is.
I think the answer in my case is I didn't love real estate per se. I loved the process of deal making. For me, the real estate was just a manifestation of the wheeling and dealing and trying to put deals together and get investors and get debt and sell it for more than it was worth. Other people, my former partner, loved real estate. He would go to the properties and fix them up, and for me it was just a means to the end. So I now love what I'm doing in the publishing business. We have a television show that's now being considered a national TV show. So for me, it was the wheeling and dealing. That was my passion, not the real estate per se. For everybody's different. That's my response. Yes, sir. As
an extension to what he asked, you had mentioned earlier on how in order for one to be successful, they have to throw themselves into that single activity with 1,000%. How do you then accommodate for the fact that there are many people that have multiple businesses running at the same time? The serial entrepreneurs that are running, 5 or 6 businesses, like Sir Richard that you referred to.
Yeah. You
can't be putting 1,000% into each one of those 17 businesses.
Yeah, but I would say with Sir Richard, because we did our homework on him, Richard Branson, he is in a position now where he can do that. But to me, a true entrepreneur is somebody who's trying to get something off the ground, trying to, with limited capital and risk, trying to get a startup going. When he started off, he was sleeping in the offices of what was then Virgin Music. It consumed him. He lived in the office. Today, he can have a cell phone company, airline. It's different. He's a billionaire.
He's uniquely positioned.
Yeah.
But there are others that
there are, but I would
businesses disjoint from one another, and they're all successful.
First of all, my theories are 99%. So there's always the exception. But we're doing a study now on multitasking. This whole subject of multitasking. Can people really? And our conclusion after studying it and talking all the excerpts, you can only do one thing well, and when you multitask, you're sort of spreading your focus. Same thing, I think, with an entrepreneur. If you really want to do it well, tunnel vision, laser vision, and then, of course, if you get $100 million and your life changes, you can do different things. So, yes, sir.
Jim,
oh, Russell, yes.
Any other surprising findings about successful people?
Wow.
Like the number 8.
Yeah, I'll tell you one that's fascinating. See if, in fact, I'm going to put this out as a question. See if people can figure out this. A guy named Malcolm Gladwell writes a book called Outliers. He's a huge success, this guy. Wrote The Tipping Point, Blink. I don't know if any of you read his new book, Outliers. So if you read it, you're not allowed to answer this question. Again, the question is, how important is genetic, sort of natural, inbred ability versus mental stuff? So he wants to figure that out. He goes to Canada and he wants to figure out why some of the hockey, he looks at hockey players, why some of them are successful. They make the NHL or they're all-stars on their college team and others aren't. So he's figuring, well, it's got to be physical ability. It has to be, they're bigger, they're stronger. So he's doing all his homework, and he comes up with a very interesting statistic. he finds that of those Canadian hockey players who are super successful, who make it to the NHL, who play in college and make all-star teams, they're all born greatly disproportionate. They're not all, but like 80% are born in the first 3 months of the calendar year. Who could think of why? Any theories on that? 80% of the NHL players from Canada, it might be 70%, but are disproportionately high, are born in January, February, and March. What's more, the greatest number by far is January, second greatest number is February, third greatest number is March. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. They're conceived in the off-season, no?
Big parties. More playtime.
I didn't hear you.
More playtime.
Why? Why they get more playtime?
They're bigger and stronger and more developed by hockey season.
Right. When they're 6 years old, when Canadian hockey starts for these kids, they go into these junior programs, starts at 6 years old. A kid born in January competing against a kid born in December, big difference. So they start out at 6 years old, they're getting more coaching time because they're bigger. They're getting more playing time because they're bigger and stronger. That difference, as you know, a 6-year-old between 12 months, huge difference. So he thinks, this can't be true. Even though it proves across the board in Canada. So he gets some statistics from some European soccer teams who, same thing, they bring them up the same way, when they're in first grade, second grade, they start in these soccer programs. Same friggin' result.
You've gone through several cycles in your careers.
Ouch.
In your varied
Right.
careers.
Yes, I had. Think roller coaster.
We're
Just
going
like.
through one of those roller coasters now. Where would you see the blue water or the opportunities from looking back with 20/20 hindsight to share with us?
Wow. Well, the thing I know best is real estate, so I'll comment. If I were still a real estate entrepreneur, I'd be working my way into the lender community, working my way into the government. I'd be positioning myself as, well, I'll tell you what I'd be doing. I just sort of thought about this yesterday. These private equity funds, I hope nobody here is in a real estate private equity fund. Okay, thank goodness. I'm partners with one in a deal, and they just lost one of their funds, $1 billion got wiped out because they invested too aggressively. And they put debt on property, and a couple of the guys who used to be with that private equity fund now spun out, and they're going to the endowments, the universities, the pension funds, the institutions, and saying, you guys got to be pushing back. You're getting wiped out billions of dollars here. And many of these private equity companies and funds, they became just churning factories. They earn a point or two on the money invested, and they didn't care so much about making money in the real estate deal, because if you have $1 billion under investment and you're earning a point, that's $10 million in fees if you have $5 billion under investment. So I'd be looking at stuff like that. I'd be looking at, I do think in chaos there's opportunity, Russell, and I think there's a lot of chaos coming in the commercial real estate world as debt comes due. The commercial mortgage securities business is flatlined. That's just my opinion. Somehow getting in between property owners, institutions, private equity, endowments, government, lenders. I try to figure out how to get in between. So, all righty.
I'm sure you can take that and put it across everybody's industry and kind of.
Yeah, no, that's because we're all industries are challenged right now. So thank you. I'll be out there. I'd love to hear your own. Thanks very much.